What is up, down, and sideways, you beautiful individuals? Welcome back to another epi of League of Eric and Mark here with you beauties, and thank goodness there actually weren't any LPL games over this weekend because there was too much action to get through even without the spiciest of the major regions on the Rift.
A rare time, a rare occasion where you are blessed that there is a little bit of a breather, a little bit of a gap in some of the games around the global scene of League of Legends because, yes, the regions like the LEC, the LTA, and of course, a little sprinkling of some drama and some extra stuff in the LCK was plenty to have a full plate from the weekend.
And we were pretty much ready coming into this year to call the LTA North a two-team region. It's just Team Liquid and FlyQuest running it back with the same rosters. They're going to dominate, sweep their way through yet another split. Not at all what happened on the weekend, as we'll start with the Cloud9 series against them. And maybe it looked like it was going to be business as usual for FlyQuest in Game 1. But Games 2 and 3, the early games out of Cloud9, like by 15 minutes, they had snowballed these games and never really looked back.
Way too far behind, way too much of an advantage put into the power positions for Cloud9 through those games 2 and 3, as you laid out, to make anything important, anything valuable later on in these games for FlyQuest. And it was one of these ones where the handle was so good from Cloud9. You know, players, Loki, Thanatos, the early engages, early action they were able to generate, and the advantages picked up. The golden economy for Mr. Sven was always there through those last two games 2 and 3, and the power was just too much for FlyQuest to handle.
Yeah, and it was under an hour for those two games, especially the Game 3. It was an absolute stomp. How about a 0-0-19 scoreline for Vulcan on the Bard in that one? He ended up getting Series MVP honors, but I think what's most impressive is how good the synergy is already for Cloud9, and we knew this would probably be a thing. Vulcan has played with Blabber and Sven before, and now you have two Korean solo laners, but it was especially Vulcan roaming to help out these solo lanes alongside Blabber, where you saw this team is better connected than last year's Cloud9 was at all.
And it's been a while since we've had a weekend like this for Vulcan, where we can talk about how successful, how much of a key integral role he was playing for what was going right, what was being set up for these Cloud9 members. And it's one of the things that you maybe didn't realize about this team heading into the year, with some of the question marks around it, some of the things that we didn't have question marks for within the LTA, Team Liquid, FlyQuest, what we knew about them from last year, these type of things. With those question marks for Cloud9, how things were going to go, maybe the angle that we missed is the time spent away, the journey, the experiences that have been there since we have had Sven and Vulcan back together in the bot lane. Vulcan working with Blabber as that jungle and support synergy. A lot has happened, a lot has changed, a lot of growth has gone on, and I think you are seeing that veteran presence, that veteran knowledge come through, combined with the skill and talent of the young solo lanes in Thanatos and Loki. This is a Cloud9 team that I'm buying, I'm taking to the moon.
And listen, I think Bwipo immediately cursed himself by talking so much trash after that Shopify Rebellion series. We know Thanatos had some insane laning numbers last year, even when Cloud9 was struggling, and especially that third game, the Urgot, he bodied Bwipo.
And if this is how we're seeing it early from Mr. Thanatos, and again, knowing that what we expect to be the development with this Cloud9 team, Reaper, of course, and everything else, very excited about what is possible for this Cloud9 team, and especially given the way that they showed out and showed up in this matchup against FlyQuest, it makes you excited about the possibility of where they can contend, what they can get to, at the end of the year. Yes, this is maybe not the best from FlyQuest, certainly one of the ones where you hope they improve and tinker around and figure some stuff out, but absolutely a great early showing here from Cloud9 to start out the LTA year and get themselves in some prime positioning to make a trip down to Brazil.
And I will forgive you if the other series you thought they were just replaying clips from Quid's MVP season, because this guy, he just put on a montage for 3 straight games, even though 100 Thieves lose the second game. They had no business losing that game. They were up like 8, almost 10K at one point, and things slowly fall off the rails. But the Jace, the Silas, and then the Victor, Quid absolutely put APA in the dumpster this weekend.
It's so unfortunate that we have the bad performance at the last World Championship for Quid that basically was the only taste left in your mouth before you get to this year, because it soured so many opinions, so many potential options when you're thinking about a team like 100 Thieves. You step into this year, you step in where we were talking about throughout the day, Team Liquid, FlyQuest, the established top. Now here comes Cloud9. Here's 100 Thieves roaring onto the scene, and here's Quid reminding us that before that tournament, he was one of the very best in the LTA. And not only before that, he was back even when we were LCS. He was being an MVP level of performer. This is that level of performance from Quid, and he's dialing it up for the rest of this 100 Thieves team. Stable, consistent damage from Mr. FBI with some solid positioning in these team fights. And of course, the guy, the center of it all, Mr. General Sniper in the top side, getting involved in the action, getting it done for the team. This was the prime weekend of all weekends that we have ever seen, I think, from an 100 Thieves team.
Yeah, I mean, it felt like that run that they had against Cloud9 in the summer playoffs last year to even qualify for that World Championship. But Snipers now becoming very accustomed to playing weak side, getting camped. It seems to be the strategy, especially for Team Liquid, to throw a lot of attention his way and not really let him get into the game. But yeah, all 3 of the games in this series, there were multiple team fights that 100 Thieves had no business winning or even being close, that Quid dragged them from the brink.
And I think one of the other important players to mention in this one that we were very critical of when things went sour for 100 Thieves or weren't up to the level that people were expecting or hoping for is Ayla down in the bottom lane as the support. I think this was a fantastic weekend, and really specifically this series against Team Liquid for him, for this team, really came through impactful plays. Quid stepping up and delivering on them, cashing on in and building up that wallet to smack everybody down with. This was the 100 Thieves that you want to see, that you wanted all the way through and hope that you might see at the beginning of the offseason. This was the weekend that delivered it all.
And at the end of it, forgotten by most people, we had the best of one between 100 Thieves and Cloud9 to decide who gets that first seed heading into the conference championship. We can, say maybe, why isn't this just a best of 3 to have another series? But Quid's performance carried over into that one on the Ambessa, 4th different champion he played over the weekend. And again, as we mentioned, both FBI, Sniper, River, it was a full team effort, especially in this game.
Well, first off, I understand it was immediately, it's that type of decision. It's the thought of, okay, well, let's follow it up. Let's give them an extra game, whatever type of thing. Not really maybe fully understanding the equation of, well, what is at stake and how to earn it. I think it values and deserves a series that is longer than just the best of one. We step into it, and it is just domination from the 100 Thieves, finding their way through time after time again, leading to, let's just say, some desperate chances from Cloud9 to try and equalize things, but very much from the very beginning of this game all the way through it, it was 100 Thieves in the driver's seat.
And if you think of, a circle of power, Cloud9 just stomped FlyQuest, who were the best performing team in North America. 100 Thieves goes on to stomp Cloud9 in the next round. How good is 100 Thieves? It's going to be hard to know. It's going to be a while till we see them again on the Rift, but feeling real good.
And if 100 Thieves is beating up on Cloud9, well, 100 Thieves, they beat up on Team Liquid. So where's Team Liquid slot themselves into that one? I think it's an interesting one. Yes, there maybe is an angle to be disappointed because of the expectations on FlyQuest and Team Liquid to be such front runners in the LTA North. But the angle that I'm going with here is the competition, the competitive side that we have seen from the C19, the potential that is there for them, the real results that 100 Thieves delivered on and have already cashed in on to make their trip down to Brazil. Those are reasons to be excited about the LTA North.
It should be an easier bounce back for both FlyQuest and TL matching up against Dignitas and Shopify Rebellion in that final qualification to get to that conference championship over in Brazil. If you are a diehard fan of T1, especially the World Championship 2024 run, things started. We're saying this is all fun, but put Guma back in. After Smash picks up yet another Player Series MVP, this time against Gen G, and you're seeing our guy flank Chovy and Ruler and solo kill them both in a decisive Game 3 team fight. I'm worried Guma's not going to play again.
I'm in the same boat as you, brother. I think there is one thing that needs to be, flat out realized in this situation. No matter the levels I think Smash gets to, there always is a reason, a validation of putting Guma back in the lineup. He has already accomplished enough within his career, never mind his career at T1, of course, the only entirety of his career, really, and what he's been able to do for this team and his loyalty to them and commitment. These are things that I think absolutely deserve that instant, no matter what the situation, play the Guma card, he can come back in the lineup. Now, with that said, it's almost impossible to remove the Smash card from that lineup, because if you are and you are T1, it is going to be the hottest, most impossible material on the earth to hold in your hand, with everybody else grabbing at it, trying to steal it for themselves, because what we have seen from Smash is certifiably one of the best potential prospects in League of Legends.
And this feels like complete deja vu or a repeat of when Guma came in. Because when Guma was starting over Teddy, it was the same conversation. How are you going to bench Teddy? Teddy's been so good for T1. You can't put this rookie in. And then Guma's debut. This guy's getting pentakills every second game, and he looked incredible. Now he's on the other end of that.
And Teddy didn't even have the World Championship tag slapped on that Guma has accomplished, has earned with T1. And again, of course, through those times that we always talk about, the most consistent member, arguably, of T1 throughout those stretches, and one of the most loyal and committed on stream, off stream, on riff, off riff, all these things. Guma lives, breathes, and dies T1 all the way through him. It's painful to see him on the sidelines in this situation, and knowing that, there is some uncertainty over exactly what's going on. And this is why I think I asked why I wanted to see T1 come out and be very clear with what their intentions were here, because now that it is out like this, Smash has performed and smashed all expectations on what he was going to do, stepping in and debuting in the LCK. Now you're left with the dilemma of having to put him to the side if you are bringing Guma back in. If it was one of these situations, now you're going to have a lot of people talking about, oh man, Smash would have been in that. You're going to have a lot more of that noise, that conversation. And again, if you are an organization like T1, at the end of the day, you can go, that's just noise. You should be able to brush it all aside. It still is something you got to deal with, still factors in. And for both Gumayusi and Smash, I don't think it's necessarily fair, given how fantastic they both have performed for the organization.
Just another curse of T1, having too many starting caliber players on the roster that they can't even start them all. It's been only good vibes so far on the Dplus Kia side of things. They get some revenge for their Kespa Cup loss to the Bros and complete the first round of the LCK Cup as the only 5-0 perfect squad. And of course, Showmaker even gets to play some Tryndamere in that final series.
Let's be honest, the guy who complains about everything K'Sante, I know Tryndamere's got his very clearly defined shortcomings in comparison to someone like K'Sante. He still has a lot of the gameplay features pretty close to the things that K'Sante does, that does drive Showmaker up a wall, but it's a very different story when he's on that side of the rift, when he's the one capable and enabled in these type of ways. Dplus Kia come through as the undefeated squad through this early part of the LCK Cup. Thrilled about this result for them. All the questions that we had for them and laid out, all the hopes and everything else, it's all double, triple, quadruple check marks across the board and what we've been getting from them. Rookie topside has been great, has been able to contribute, has been reliable for this team. All the things that you don't expect a rookie top laner to really be able to deliver upon. Lucid has stepped in and not missed a beat. No sophomore slump, no signs of it whatsoever. He has been phenomenal for this entire team. Showmaker looking like the Showmaker of old, having fun, great times. And the bottom lane, it's Barrel. It's all Barrel. Beryl is this whole team, never mind just the bottom lane, what he has stepped in and how he has commanded and controlled things and set out that organization. You love to see things like this, the success of Dplus Kia.
Yeah, and I think even in the past year or two, when they have had stretches where they look like a premier elite team, you watch the games and it's just kind of chaos. They're coming out ahead. You're not really sure how they're winning these games, but they're beating Gen G in a best of, or they're beating T1 in a best of. But here, it's mostly, I mean, there's still a bit of that chaotic flavor that will happen when you have Showmaker and Beryl on your roster in Fearless Draft era. But for the most part, it's a lot more calm, cool, and collected even with these young players.
There is an element of that wild card that still exists within the DNA of Dplus Kia, and especially with players like Showmaker and what he is capable of. But yeah, Beryl stepping on in, it feels almost like a hive mind, how collective, how together, and how in synergy this team is with what Beryl commands, what he says it is. And that's the story. That's the action that's going to go through. And they have been great at it so far. Very thrilled with Dplus Kia.
Going to be a little while, obviously, till we see them hit the Rift again as we now transition to that next era or next round of the play-in stage for that LCK Cup, which we'll get a full preview and break down everything later in the week with power rankings over in the LCK. But we got to get to some of the LEC action, the final week of that. I guess they're still calling it regular season, but the marquee matchup, first place on the line, LEC top dog title, Fnatic versus Carmine Corp. And Fnatic must have been seeing all these Kalist hype videos and threads because they said, we're just going to camp this Ezreal. He's not even going to get to play the game, and we'll see what you guys got outside of that. And the answer was nothing, because Fnatic had almost a 17k gold lead in this game, Mark.
Oh man, Fnatic, they've been listening. They've been hearing people talk about all these other teams in the LEC saying, yeah, Fnatic, they're in that group, but I'm not really all that interested in them. I think it's the other guys that are going to be the ones that do eventually get towards the promised land. It is Fnatic, and they show up big against Carmine Corp in a match that was a wonderful environment, atmosphere again in the LEC studio. Carmine Corp, of course, always usually bringing it, but Fnatic, the old guard, more than matching and challenging it. And especially when you have a performance like their players put out on the Rift, you know the fans are going to be backing.
And obviously, Razork, especially on the Vi, is a treat to see. But Razork, let's not forget, last year, I think he was pretty much consensus the best jungler in EU for the entirety of 2024. He's continuing that theme here early in 2025. And it's hard to account too much to the new bot lane for Fnatic, but I'm hard-pressed not to believe that the clean gameplay, not just Fiesta team fights across the board, you got to attribute a lot of that to Mickey coming in, right?
Or you better bet your bottom dollar that it's going to be Mickey that is the responsible party for this one in Fnatic, and how he has changed a lot of this, brought in some of that G2 culture and strategy, as well as something I think has been that flavor for Fnatic. One thing I want to touch on, it's kind of crazy given what has happened in League of Legends, where a game like this from Upset on Kai'Sa feels like, putting on some nice old-fashioned wool socks and, right in front of the fireplace, snow coming. It's just a classic scene. It's just a classic scene in League of Legends, seeing Upset pilot that Kai'Sa and dip, dance, and dive and get all those type of kills. It ain't nothing like the 2,000 years of Zeri gameplay or anything else down in the bottom lane. Love this one from Upset and the rest of the Fnatic boys.
And listen, Upset has looked super good, amazing through these first couple of weeks. A lot of it's probably playing with a solid support again. He was playing with a not-so-solid Targamas, and then he had Kaiser, who was feeling a little bit washed up. He hasn't had a great support since he was playing with Hylissang on Fnatic way back in 2022. So obviously, that's got to play a part in why he's looking so good. And you want to talk about solid supports. How about his best game of his young G2 career? Hans Sama and Labrov absolutely styling on the MCoy bot lane.
Okay, maybe we're a little too early on this. Fnatic's coming back. G2 is
It's
back.
just the same script as always.
Oh, we're heading for it. The El Clasico Fnatic G2 finals in the LEC. But yes, G2 is back with a vengeance, and they certainly are inserting themselves into that conversation at the very top of the LEC, just unexpected time here as we head towards these playoffs in the LEC. Yes, this performance from that bottom lane of G2 is the important one to talk about. I think there are certain things to mention and give some praise over to the other new member of G2 this year, Skewmon, and what he was doing in the jungle. But it is that about that bottom lane and really about LeBron and how he steps up in this one. I think this is the first time we can really say this is the marquee game from him with G2 to show that potential, that talent, the reason why people did like him moving over to the team.
And I think, even including Skewmon and having a great game, the biggest thing to take away from this is in a marquee matchup against Movistar Koi, Caps and Broken Blade were kind of passengers in this game. And that's kind of what we've said. There's too much pressure on the solo lanes for G2 to perform. You have a game like this where they can kind of take a back seat and let the other three members kind of drive the car. And that's exactly what you need to be seeing out of them.
Sometimes you need that overwhelming, power in a certain position to take it over and just power through type of thing. Having the options that we are starting to see develop for a team like G2, who has in the past just done that overwhelming option. Someone like Caps, something like Broken Blade at times in the top side, having these other options with this team right now, getting Lebrov involved with some of that action, having Skewmon have a game like this. These are the things that are going to be building towards what is that championship type of territory we always know G2 to be in. Fnatic seemed destined for that type of zone. We were feeling that type of way about squads like Carmine Corp, like Movistar, BDS, Giant X. You throw them all in there. There is some more uncertainty about a couple of those squads, but I think at the very least, you combine it all together, you've got a heck of an LEC playoffs heading our way, boys.
It's always competitive. It's just there's less to prove if you're G2 and Fnatic because you've been there time and time and time again, so people still have the faith in you. But that is it today for League Unlock. Eric and Mark here with you. Beautiful people, as always. Thank you so much for hanging out, and we will catch you on that flippity flip.